just subscribe below, and if you enjoy this, you find it helpful, please leave a comment and give it a thumbs up.
Dragon's Fire, Part 1. As you listen to this bedtime story, you can let your eyes close and you can begin to drift comfortably asleep as I talk to you in the background. And while I'm talking to you, and you relax and you drift comfortably asleep. You can begin to just imagine the story playing out in your mind. And one morning, Highland, the wizard's apprentice, awoke to the sounds of screaming that he could hear off in the distance from the nearby village. Highland lived in a shack along the coast from the village. He jumped up out of bed, got a robe on, and ran out of his shack. He didn't know what was going on or how he might be able to help. He just knew he had to try and do something. He started to run along the soft sandy beach, with the gentle clear blue water lapping on the shore to his left, and meadow leading off to a wooded valley off to the right. He could notice the clear blue sky with almost no clouds in the sky, apart from smoke that was bellowing up into the air above the village. As he ran, he could notice that there was a dragon circling the village, swooping down, breathing fire across the village, then bursting up through the smoke, high into the sky again, before swooping round again and diving back down on the village, breathing more fire. And each burst of fire from the dragon's mouth sounded like a jet engine. With the sound of crackling wood, flames rising up above the houses. The dragon was red, with huge wings, a long neck, and piercing eyes. As Highland approached the village, he passed through the village wall. Everything was in chaos. People were running around everywhere. People were screaming for their loved ones. Houses were falling down, other buildings were falling down. His teacher, the wizard, was in the town square, trying to use his magic to defeat the dragon. He was trying to create a protective force field around the villagers, around the village, whilst at the same time trying to use magic to blast that red dragon out of the sky. The dragon started circling around and trying to go for the wizard. The protective blue force field emanating from the wizard was spreading out further and further into the village, protecting more and more people. But Highland could see that the wizard was struggling to be able to do a spell to project a force field out to protect everyone, whilst at the same time trying to fight the dragon, because Highland noticed the wizard wasn't able to fire through his own force field, so he'd have to keep dropping the force field at exactly the same moment as he fires energy at the dragon, and then reinstigate the force field just as the energy passes where the force field should be. But this kept giving the dragon an opportunity to fire back, to breathe down searing fire upon the wizard and the village. Hyland saw that a building was about to collapse. So as he ran along, he quickly darted into the building, grabbing some people and jumping out a window, just as the building was falling down the opposite direction, before reaching the ground, rolling on the ground, and rolling the people to safety along the ground. And then running further towards the town square. Rescuing different people as he went. Using magic to temporarily stop falling buildings, just centimetres above people that the masonry and timber is about to hit, to give them moments just to squeeze out and escape before allowing the building to continue falling. Sending shields to protect people as the dragon dive bombed and breathed fire. And Highland was by no means a skilled magician or a skilled wizard. He was still only learning. Just as he was nearing the town square, he saw the dragon circle round and this time fly in very low. And the dragon this time didn't just breathe fire. It charged headlong through the wall to the village and straight through the houses whilst breathing fire forward. Before crashing directly into the force field created by the wizard, which created a bright white flash of light and heat. And the dragon struck the force field, flying vertically at high speed up into the sky, while the wizard was thrown across the town square, straight through some buildings, collapsing in a heap on the floor, not moving. Highland did what he could. He ran forward into the town square, tried to take up the role that his mentor had been doing, tried to continue fighting off that dragon, protecting the village. But he was no match for the dragon. The dragon circled around again, dive-bombed the village again. He told everyone to run out through the break in the village wall, run down to the beach, run down to the caves along the seafront, and go and find shelter in the caves. As the villagers ran out of the village and down to the seafront, Highland cast a spell, creating a force field high above him, in line with the dragon. He wasn't able to create a force field that covered the whole village, but he was able to create a force field strong enough to protect from the fire, but it was very targeted. So he had to hold it in line with the dragon. And the dragon continued diving and breathing fire. And Highland held it as long as he could, before the dragon turned and swooped back up away again, and circled around. And this time, as the dragon circled around, it did a wide circle and it didn't seem to be coming back. Highland ran over to the wizard. The wizard was badly injured. He spoke to his mentor. His mentor said that he would have to learn to take out the dragons. The dragons have come back to the land. And that unless somebody can take out all of the dragons that have come back, the dragon in each realm of the land, and take out the black dragon, which has arisen again, then nobody will be safe, and death and darkness will descend across the whole land. Highland didn't know how he was going to be able to do this, so he asked what he needs to do, and he was told he needs to find a team of people, a team that can go with him, that have different skills. He was told he needs to Go and find Fezler the elf, Kroger the dwarf, and the siren Piper. And he needs to take that small team, convince them to go on a journey through the realms. To take out the dragons that are intent on bringing death and destruction. He needs to learn the skills to achieve this and work together with the others. And that it's only when he's mastered the mind, the body, the spirit, mastered magic, and then achieved enlightenment, that he'll be able to successfully take out the black dragon. And he was told that to achieve enlightenment, he has to find the Book of Enlightenment. Which will be in a cave in the realm of death. So only when he's got that Book of Enlightenment, he'll be able to have the knowledge and the skill to take out the black dragon. So Highland decided to find this team and to go after these dragons. He didn't think he was experienced enough, but if the wizard believed in him, he should believe in himself. He knew that the villagers would be able to handle things themselves. They'd be able to take care of themselves, and now the dragon's gone, be able to put out the fires and tend to the injured. And use the caves for safe haven for now. Highland head down to the coast. Head down to the caves. To search for the dwarf Kroger. He had to go down to the caves that were some distance from the village. So he walked down to the seafront. Walked along the seafront, he could see all the caves that the villagers were occupying. He walked down onto the golden sand, all the way down to the water's edge, where he could feel the water lapping over his feet as he walked along. He could hear the water sloshing in and back out again. And feel the sea breeze on his face. And he walked along here to keep away from all of the rocks, because it was going to be quicker if he just kept walking along this area than having to climb over rocks and navigate slightly further into the shore. After a few hours of walking, Hyland saw the cave region where the dwarves lived. And the dwarves usually kept themselves to themselves. Occasionally the dwarves would be found in the village. Some of them would pop to the village and go drinking in the taverns in the village. But usually they kept themselves to themselves. And the dwarves were short and stocky, and yet incredibly strong, almost like they were made largely out of muscle. They're often very abrupt and direct. And they didn't like people beating around the bush. They liked people to be direct with them. And Highland asked where Kroger was. And the dwarves at the entrance to the dwarven underground caves directed him deep into the caves. So he walked into the caves, and these caves went down deeper and deeper, so he followed the steps down into the caves deeper and deeper as he hunted for the dwarf. And he could hear parties going on, dwarves singing and drinking. He could see some dwarves working with pickaxes, mining for different ores. Other dwarves were beating leather, making clothes. There was dwarves working as blacksmiths, and the sound of hammering metal, the sound of metal being plunged into water, with the bubbling fizzing of white hot metal plunged into water. And Highland found the place where Kroger lived. And he told Kroger about what had happened back in the village and what the wizard had told him. And Kroger at first was reluctant to help. But he said that if the village had the support of Kroger, Highland said he's sure that they would pay handsomely. So Kroger agreed to go with him and go on this journey. He thought it sounded fun. He liked a good fight, he liked a good opportunity to demonstrate his skill, his strength, his fearlessness. So Kroger and Highland then found their way out of the caves, back to the beach. They then took a boat, a sailboat, sailed out into the sea, sailed over the breaking waves, out into the rolling waves, with the sloshing sound of the waves passing under the boat. And they held a course, keeping the shore on their left, and just a horizon of water on the right. They sailed along, with just the sound of the wind and the sloshing water, heading to some distant rocks where the sirens lived. And some of the sirens took enjoyment from singing and luring people to their death, while others were trying to break away from this instinctive behaviour. And so Highland recommends that Kroger and himself plug their ears as they approach the rocks so that they can't hear any singing from the sirens, so they're not lured to their death. And they arrive at the rocks and they moor up, and they can see that there's sirens singing, but they can't hear the singing the sirens are doing. And they hunt for the siren piper. And she sat quietly up high on a rock with a contemplative expression, just gazing out over the ocean, not singing. So Highland approaches Piper, and she's the most beautiful female he's ever seen. And he approaches her, unplugs his ears, and asks her if she'll join him on his quest. And he explains about what's happened to the village. He explains about these dragons coming back and how they will lead to death for everyone. So Piper agrees that she'll come on this journey, that she'll come on this quest. She likes the idea of being with people, of getting away from luring people to their deaths on this shore, on these rocks. She likes the idea of being treated as someone with value. So Highland plugs up his ears again, and Piper, Highland and Kroger go back and get in the boat and sail to shore. And after landing on shore, they go hunting for the elf Fezler. And Fezler lives up on a plateau, overseeing the valley below. So they struggle up to that plateau. And it's a steep climb, and they have to do rock climbing, and they have to help each other to climb to the top. The elves are experts at climbing. They're swift and agile. When they reach the plateau, they can gaze out to the mountains off in the distance, to the coast where they've just come up, and surveying the whole valley below. And they talk to the elves and they ask for Fezler and ask where he is. And they go and ask Fezler whether he'll help them on their quest. They explain about the black dragon, about the dragons returning. And Fezler agrees to go with them. And now the whole team is formed. They gaze out from the plateau over the valley, knowing that their next mission is to go down deep into the valley and find that red dragon that attacked the village, and take out the red dragon. But to do that requires developing the mind. And so the wizard apprentice knows, Highland knows, his journey will develop his mind so that he's prepared with the others to take out that red dragon.